morning. Today's topic is on eczemas. So, eczema or dermatitis, these are the terms which are used synonymously for all practical purposes. Although all dermatitis are not eczemas, still they are used synonymously. Eczema means to boil out. It's a reaction of the skin due to external and internal stimuli, and it can present as acute or subacute or chronic. Bayer he described eczema as a pruritic papullovesicular process in which acute phase is associated with erythema and edema, while in chronic phase, the same some of the features might, such as the papullovesicular features, may be retained, and along with that, there will be thickening, lichenification, and scaling. So, in other words, eczema will generally evolve through three stages. One is acute, other one is subacute, then it becomes chronic. So, how to differentiate acute, subacute, and chronic is mainly by clinical features. In acute stage, it's an oozing dermatitis, which is characterized by intense pruritus, erythema, edema, papullovesiculation, and oozing and crusting. Then in subacute stage, it's a scaling dermatitis, which is characterized by erythema, edema, vesiculation, and oozing component. Whichever is seen in acute stage will come down, and scaling and crusting will become predominant. In chronic stage, hyperkeratotic thickened dermatitis, which is characterized by dry scaling and lichenification. Lichenification includes three components: thickening of the skin, skin markings, and pigmentation. Some degree of itching is a cardinal feature of eczema, and clinically, eczema may start at any age, any stage, and evolve into another. Often, the lesions of dermatitis are polymorphous, ill-defined, and pruritic. Coming for the classification of eczema, traditionally it has been classified into endogenous and exogenous eczema. Endogenous eczema will result from patient's own inherent characteristics or constitutions rather than the environment. Exogenous eczema, on the other hand, will be due to external allergens or external influence of some particular agent. So, examples for endogenous eczema include atopic dermatitis, seborrheic dermatitis, nummular dermatitis, stasis eczema, H-steatotic eczema, lichen simplex chronicus, Pomphylix, Pityriasis alba, Prurigo nodularis. Exogenous eczema includes contact dermatitis, which may be again irritant contact dermatitis or an allergic contact dermatitis, photodermatitis, phototoxic dermatitis, and photoallergic dermatitis are the common photodermatitis seen. Then infective dermatitis, phytophotodermatitis, and traumatic dermatitis are the other types. So, coming for the contact dermatitis, it's one of the most common presentation to a skin occlusion. It happens whenever skin comes in contact with an exogenous substance, which causes inflammation. So, again, the contact dermatitis can be irritant contact dermatitis or allergic contact dermatitis. Irritant contact dermatitis will be due to the substances which can damage the skin directly. Whereas allergic contact dermatitis is more of an immunological phenomenon, and it will be caused because of delayed type of hypersensitivity. The allergens in allergic contact dermatitis can be either plant allergens or systemic allergens or even airborne allergens. So the main differences between irritant and allergic contact dermatitis include, mainly by clinical feature, we will be able to differentiate. One is irritant contact dermatitis generally presents at the onset with burning sensation or pain, whereas allergic contact dermatitis, on the other hand, will present with itching, scaling, and lichenification. Later stages of irritant contact dermatitis, whenever the irritant is very strong, can also lead to erythema, edema, and vesiculation. Sometimes even bulla formation and necrosis as well. Distribution, coming for the distribution, irritant contact dermatitis will be limited to the site of contact, whereas allergic contact dermatitis can spread to other areas distant from the site of contact. concentration of substance required to produce irritant contact dermatitis is is usually high, whereas for allergic contact dermatitis, the allergen required to elicit the immunological reaction will be very low. Common agents which cause irritant contact dermatitis include alkalis, acids, and soaps and detergents. For allergic contact dermatitis, it will be plant pollen, metals, and things such as formaldehyde. Irritant contact dermatitis will be a non-immunological phenomenon, whereas allergic contact dermatitis is a immune-mediated phenomenon. Any person, even with a normal skin, if he gets exposed to a particular irritant, he can develop irritant contact dermatitis. Whereas allergic contact dermatitis will happen only in specific genetically predisposed sensitized individuals. Patch test won't be useful in irritant contact dermatitis, but in case of allergic contact dermatitis, it is the diagnostic modality. There's a type of cells involved here is neutrophils in irritant contact dermatitis, whereas for allergic contact dermatitis, it will be lymphocytes and eosinophils. So whenever you come across a case of allergic contact dermatitis, the diagnostic test will be a patch test, and we can also do biopsy in order to rule out the mimickers of eczema. And apart from that, if we take proper history and clinical examination, most of the time we'll be able to establish the diagnosis of allergic contact dermatitis. So treatment, there is a general measure. One thing is, most important thing is the causative allergen or causative agent should be eliminated. That's the most important treatment aspect of both irritant as well as allergic contact dermatitis. And we can also give moisturization and also gentle cleaning. Topical treatment actually depends upon the stage of eczema. If it is an acute stage, we can give saline compressors or Condy's lotion and topical steroids. In subacute stage, we can give things such as zinc oxide paste and topical steroid application. In chronic stage, emollient should be given frequently along with the topical steroid application. And coming for the systemic treatment, it is reserved for people with having extensive skin involvement. You'll ideally give a short course of oral steroid, and if there is any secondary bacterial or fungal infection, that has to be treated as well. And usually, the lesions of both irritant and allergic contact dermatitis heal in 1 to 2 weeks with appropriate treatment. Is the slide summarizing the same? Coming for the next type of dermatitis, it is photodermatitis. Photodermatitis can be phototoxic dermatitis or photoallergic dermatitis. Phototoxic dermatitis is usually caused by exogenous, systemic, or topical agents. Generally, the phototoxic agent, basically what happens is it will get activated by ultraviolet rays, and this causes direct damage to the tissue, and it results in the clinical manifestation of the disease. Commonly, the drugs such as NSAIDs, thiazide, TARS, Sorelin, retinoids, these are the drugs which cause phototoxic reactions. They resemble sunburn reaction. On clinical examination, they resemble the sunburn reaction, and they will present, the lesions will be predominantly the sun-exposed area. Whenever the reaction is very severe, they can present with vesicles and bullae as well. Once we stop the offending drug, the reaction will subside with pigmentation. Diagnosis will be based on history and examination, and we can also consider doing photo testing with the possible allergens. And apart from that, treatment will be mainly aimed at photoprotection and topical steroid for inflammation. And if the reaction is very severe, we can also consider giving the oral steroid. Coming for the photoallergic contact dermatitis, photoallergic dermatitis, it represents a type 4 hypersensitivity reaction, just like allergic contact dermatitis. So this incidence is lower when compared to phototoxic reactions, and this is caused by topical agents rather than the systemic agents. Common agents causing it include topical antiseptics and antibacterial agents, and these will be activated by UV rays. especially in the UVA range. They present with photoallergic reactions present similar to allergic conduct dermatitis. They'll usually be predominantly present on the sun exposed side, but whenever the reaction is very severe, can also develop in the covered sides as well. The diagnosis is mainly based on history and examination findings. We can also do a photo patch testing to confirm the diagnosis. Treatment will be mainly aimed at photoprotection and topical steroid. And if at all if the reaction is very severe, we can also consider giving a short course of oral steroid. Coming for the seborrheic dermatitis is something which is commonly seen in dermatology OPD. It basically presents with redness, pruritus, and scaling. Mild cases in adults is called as dandruff. In infants, it is called as Brading gap. Sebaceous glands are the most active in areas such as face, scalp, upper trunk, and also the body fluid. So predominantly the clinical lesions will also be located in the seborrheic distribution, that is in the upper trunk, head and neck area, and in the folds. Etiology, coming for the etiology and pathogenesis, it usually begins in the adolescence, and males are more commonly affected when compared to females here, and this can occur due to abnormal immune response to resident Malassezia species of the yeast. And what happens is they will release the free fatty acids because of the inherent lipase activity which is there in the Malassezia species. And once the free fatty acids are released into the skin, there will be a inflammatory reaction against the free fatty acids. So this results in the clinical manifestation. So clinical features again depends upon the severity of the disease, and scalp involvement will be having they will be having either dry scales or sometimes even the greasy scales, and infants will show cradle cap, that is greasy scales which is present on the vertex. Commonly it presents at the age of 3 months, and facial lesions it will be present predominantly on the eyelashes as blepharitis, and also it can involve the nasolabial folds. Trunk lesions, either they will be annular or geographic plaques or erythematous plaques can be seen. Apart from that, they can also be seen as erythematous papules as well. Occasionally, generalized erythroderma can occur. Erythroderma is when the lesions have spread to more than 80 to 90% of the body surface area. So this can occur in patients with AIDS or immunodeficiency, or with some neurological conditions such as Parkinson's. So if you see an extensive seborrheic dermatitis, we should always consider some sort of immunodeficiency. So we should always, especially in adults, we should try to work up for AIDS. We should give a HIV blood investigation just to rule out this thing. Then coming for the diagnosis, usually clinical features are diagnostic. It will present with the characteristic scaling and distribution. Differential diagnosis include atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, pityriasis versicolor, pityriasis rosea, and sometimes even pemphigus foliaceus. Treatment. For mild cases which involves only the scalp, we can just give a shampoo or lotion which contains an antifungal or a topical steroid. This is effective, but commonly with this particular treatment alone, there will be chances of relapse. For severe cases, we can also consider giving oral antifungal, ketoconazole, then fluconazole, then itraconazole. All these things can be given for severe cases. Most cases of seborrheic dermatitis are generally mild and they will be controlled with topical therapy, but some actually will have a severe recurring course. So we should always consider that in mind. And for recurrence, we can consider giving maintenance oral antifungals in the form of itraconazole or fluconazole. Coming for the next type of dermatitis, which is an endogenous eczema, that is atopic dermatitis. Atopic dermatitis is very important. Is a very important disease presenting in the childhood. It presents as an acute, subacute, and chronic relapsing skin disorder. Usually, it begins at early infancy itself, around 6 months of age. It is characterized by recurrent pruritus, xerosis, lichenification, and symmetric eczematous lesions. There is no specific lab test and diagnosis. It is essentially by clinical feature. We can use a clinical criteria called the Hanifin-Rajka criteria for the diagnosis of dermatitis. More than 50% of the cases will occur in the first year of life, and 80% of the cases will happen before the 5 years of age. This is one important thing is with age, atopic dermatitis tends to improve. However, incidence of atopic dermatitis due to various factors, like for example, urbanization, higher living standards, overuse of antibiotic, all those things have been found to be various factors influencing the cause of this development of atopic dermatitis. Pathophysiology is complex, and it has both genetic as well as environmental factors, and major contributors of atopic dermatitis include defective skin barrier function, some defects in the innate immune system, some allergens and microbial antigens have been postulated to be major contributors. Then imbalance between Th1 and Th2 subset of T cell immunity. Then keratinocytes and Langhans cells will also play some role in the pathogenesis of AD. The prevalence in children is said to be 10 to 12% and 0.9% in adult, and 30% of these cases can also develop asthma, and 35% of these patients can also develop allergic rhinitis. So as we can see here, the prevalence rate will decrease towards the adult age group. That shows that with age, actually, the atopic dermatitis generally gets better. Coming for the clinical feature, it will present with intense pruritus. So that is the pruritus is the hallmark of atopic dermatitis. Later, it can lead to, because of the itching, the child keeps on scratching his skin. So this basically leads in later stages to prurigo nodularis and prurigo papules, and later it can also cause eczematization as well. The pattern of lesion according to age and activity of the disease, we have a pattern which is commonly seen. One is during the infantile phase, atopic dermatitis is more acute and it is predominant on face, scalp, and extensor surface of extremities. Typically, erythema, papules, vesicles, excoriation, and exudation, which noticed at around third month of life. So basically, infants, it is predominantly involving the face, scalp, and extensor surface of the extremities. During the childhood, there will be lichenification or even sometimes even eczematous lesion, predominantly involving the flexures. In adults, usually eczematous rather than eczematous lesion, you will get to see lichenification, and it is more prone to itching and inflammation, lichenification again in the flexures. So chronic and remitting pruritic disease with onset in childhood and characteristic distribution is typical of atopic dermatitis. That's how we will diagnose. The diagnosis is based on clinical findings, but exogenous allergies and elevated IgE are complementary, that they are not so useful because diagnosis is mainly based on clinical findings alone. We can do some investigations. One thing is elevated IgE levels can be seen in 70 to 80% of the patients, and many patients even show eosinophilia. Treatment is generally the treatment will be by this thing. That is that we have to use some general measures. For example, any triggering factors should be identified and avoided. And in order to improve the dryness of skin, of course, we should always tell the atopic skin care, which includes frequent moisturization and some of the habitual or lifestyle modifications which will be done to the parent of the child. And topical therapy is the mainstay of treatment in atopic dermatitis. So basically, topical steroids till the lesion clear. We can also use topical calcium inhibitors in case we have to use topical steroids for a long time. Then systemic therapy includes antihistamines. Then oral steroids. Oral steroids have minimal role in atopic dermatitis as it's a chronic recurrent condition which and it is happening in children. And we tend to avoid oral steroids, giving oral steroids unless the lesions are very severe. And the cyclosporin is a good modality of treatment. Apart from that, phototherapy, that is PUA therapy, in adult who is having uncontrolled AD, we can give. And apart from that, the natural history of AD is variable in various patients, and mild cases in childhood can show spontaneous remission after about 5 to 6 years and may live with the milder form. Severe AD can continue towards to up to adulthood and continue to receive some form of therapy during outbreaks. So the key diagnostic criteria of AD we have to summarize. It will be the pruritus, which is very important. Then apart from that, typical morphology and distribution. Then tendency towards chronic or relapsing course, and personal or family history of atopic disorder. Other common skin findings such as dryness of skin, recurrent infection, and some of the other classical eye findings such as conjunctivitis, keratitis, tears of capsule and cataract. All these things we should consider. The next important, next common endogenous eczema which will present to the OPD includes numblar dermatitis or discoid eczema. Discoid eczema is basically, it is characterized by round to oval erythematous plaques, which mostly occur on the extremities. So etiology of numblar dermatitis is not very clear. It is a form of endogenous eczema that is clear, and patient may have history of atopic. Either in the patient or in the family, there is someone who will be having atopic. So that is one possible correlation we have found out. And apart from that, the focus of infection or environmental allergy sometimes can also be seen in these cases. It is more common in men, but often it is in children with atopic dermatitis. Clinical features we look at, we present with well circumscribed round to oval erythematous plaque with pruritus. Usually it is seen on the extensor surface of the leg or around the ankles. Then histiototic eczema and atopic eczema, lichen simplex chronicus and tinea palpalis will be the differential diagnosis. Diagnosis: if you see a characteristic round or discoid or a cone-shaped lesion, predominantly which is seen around the ankles or extensor surface of the knees, we can diagnose it as discoid eczema. Treatment will be topical steroids. Stasis dermatitis or gravitational eczema. It is nothing but the chronic inflammation of the lower extremities and early manifestation, which suggests that there is some sort of venous insufficiency in that particular patient. So it may be followed by serious sequelae of venous ulcers and even lipodermatosclerosis as well. So because of the venous hypertension, due to several reasons which are the causes for venous hypertension, there will be a valvular incompetence and there is a backflow of blood to the superficial venous system, and this results in venous hypertension. And once there is venous hypertension, it will lead to extravasation of RBCs and dermal hemosiderin deposition. So once hemosiderin is deposited, basically it can cause pigmentary changes because of the hemosiderin. And apart from that, it can also induce itching. It's an irritant and it can also induce itching in the patient. So often it is seen in middle-aged and old people. Those people who are suffering with chronic venous insufficiency. So the initial features of stasis eczema includes gradual appearance of ankle edema and pigmentation. Usually the medial aspect of the ankle, and that is the lower 1/3 of the leg is the commonly involved site, which is known as gaiter zone. And apart from that, if there is this secondary infection, there can be oozing and pus discharge as well. Long-standing cases, on the other hand, will show pigmentation, scaling, and lichenification. And later it can develop venous ulcers as well as lipodermatosclerosis. investigation in this particular case will be to do a get a venous Doppler done to determine the hemodynamic abnormalities of the lower limb and assess the integrity of the deep venous system. What is how to diagnosis? Mainly by clinical examination, and along with that, we can also see the venous varicosities as well as we can get a venous Doppler, which might suggest the valvular incontinence. Differential diagnosis for stasis eczema includes steatotic eczema and atopic dermatitis. Treatment during the acute phase, we can give saline compresses and topical steroid, and if at all if there is secondary infection, we can consider giving systemic antibiotics as well. Apart from that, avoiding lifestyle modification to avoid prolonged standing and using compression stockings is also very important. Some drugs such as aspirin and pentoxifilin actually promote healing of venous ulcer. They basically increase the capillary blood flow. By increasing the capillary blood flow, they promote the healing of non-healing venous ulcer. Next topic, which is commonly seen in OPD, will be lichen simplex chronicus or neurodermatitis. So this is an area of lichenification which happens due to repetitive rubbing or scratching. So this will be mainly done by the patients as a habit or due to stress. So this is characterized by one or more well circumscribed plaques of lichenification. So one important thing about lichen simplex chronicus is it will be done over the accessible areas. That is, whether it is nape of the neck or scalp or scrotum, even ankles, leg, feet, vulva. These are the accessible areas. Are the areas where patients generally tend to scratch. Then apart from that, it is also seen in patients who are having some sort of emotional stress or even people with psychiatric disorders as well. And sometimes there might be a pre-existing dermatosis, including something like a tinea corporis, which might have already resolved, but the patient will have that habit of scratching over the area continuously, and later it will go in for lichen simplex chronicus. So treatment will be giving topical steroid and antihistamine. So other dermatitis with other endogenous eczema, which we commonly deal with in OPD, includes steatotic eczema or steatotic dermatitis. This is the dermatitis of old age where there is dryness, scaling, and cracked skin, which is especially localized to the leg, but it can involve other areas as well. So basically, in elderly patients, because of the loss of cutaneous lipid content, so basically this since there is no lipid content in the skin, this will increase the transepidermal water loss, and once there is transepidermal water loss, it promotes further drying and also subsequent eczema. Onset may be induced by a bath without using emollients, or it is also more common during winter seasons, and also whenever they use some contact irritant or medication, then also chances of steatotic dermatitis improve. Coming for the clinical features, initially it will present with xerosis, later it will lead to cracking with polygonal scales and inflammation. Typically, it is seen over the pretibial area to, and then it will extend to other parts of the leg, and sometimes it is even seen in the trunk as well as upper extremities. Excoriation, area of bleeding, secondary infection can also occur as complication. Treatment is frequent use of moisturizers. Rarely, if the inflammation is very severe, we can give a topical steroid. Otherwise, just moisturizer. Frequent use of moisturizer. Then coming for the next group of disorders, that is Pemphigus. Pemphigus is nothing but acute and recurrent dermatitis of hands and feet, which is characterized by pruritus and vesicular eruptions. The exact cause of Pemphigus is actually not known. Some believe it may be a reaction to some of the endogenous substances such as metallic or some other allergic sensitization. Lesions are preceded by a feeling of having itching or burning. Typically, they will begin over the sides of the finger as deep-seated vesicles with a sago grain or tapioca cutting-like appearance. Along with that, patients will also have hyperhidrosis. Commonly, these lesions are seen over the palms and soles, and each episode generally lasts for 3 to 4 weeks, but recurrence is common. Treatment is cold compresses and potent topical steroid. If severe episode may, if severe, the episodes may also require a course of oral steroid. Coming for the next disorder, which is pityriasis alba, it's a common disorder which is characterized by an ill-defined or ill-defined hyperpigmentation with fine scaling. Basically, it is common in children and young adults, common over the face. There is no particular etiology, but often it is seen with atopic children. It generally persists for months to years, and it is generally self-healing. We should always consider the differentials of indeterminate leprosy or Arctic vitiligo in these cases, and apart from that, even we can consider polymorphous light eruption as a differential as well. Treatment is reassurance, and sometimes even topical emollients and mild steroid application can also help. Prurigo nodularis is a condition which is characterized by intense pruritus due to persistent rubbing and scratching, and it may lead to the formation of nodules on the lower limb metabolism. Most of the cases will give history of atopy. And this condition, sometimes it is very difficult to differentiate from hypertrophic lichen plants. So basically, there is vesiculation, leaking, crusting, lichenification. So this is the picture which is depicting how to do back test. Basically, we have a series of allergens which are predetermined allergens, which are very commonly seen in our patients. So we have made that into a series, and we basically put two patches over the around the interscapular region of the back. And see for the and read for the allergic response after 48 hours. This is a cosmetic dermatitis, which here we can see there is edema, erythema, and also some vesiculation, predominantly seen in the face after face of this patient after application of the cosmetic product. This is an acute contact eczema. How do you know whether it is acute? We can see that the patient has erythema, edema, and also vesiculation. This indicates acute eczema. This is a case of chronic eczema. How do we say it is chronic eczema? One thing is we can see that there is lichenification. Lichenification includes thickened skin, increased skin markings, and also increased pigmentation. So since there is lichenification of both the wrist, we can consider it as a form of chronic eczema. Here we can see it is a contact eczema due to belt buckle. Belt buckles commonly contain nickels in them. So this patient, even the pant button is also might be having nickel in it. So basically, since it is coming in contact with the patient's skin over that area, there is a dermatitis which has developed over there. So it's a contact dermatitis to nickel. So basically, for atopic eczema, these are the various factors which are being implicated in the development of atopic eczema. And atopic eczema in a child is what's around the face. That is especially in mostly face and eyes. This is here we can see lichenification with the flexures indicating chronic atopic eczema. This is a case of discoid eczema or nuclear eczema. You can see a coin-shaped oval plaque, which is having a little bit of erythema and also a little bit of crust. This is a case of confolix, where we can see here there are multiple sago grain-like deep-seated vesicles, predominantly seen around the lateral aspect of the fingers. Chronic stasis eczema will present in the lower one third of the feet, which is known as gaiter slope. Later, this might here also we are already seeing some amount of pigmentation over case of osteotropic eczema. Here we can see the background there is so much of dryness and cirrhosis. Later, with the time, this cirrhosis will lead to this cracking and formation of polygonal scales. This is a case of lichen simplex chronicus or neurodermatitis. This happens. It's mostly, I would say, it's that because of repeated scratching, patient will develop this particular lesion. This is a case of juvenile plantar dermatosis. Here we can see there is a diffuse involvement of both the feet. Seborrheic dermatitis, the distribution pattern is we can see in this picture: scalp, then around the eyelids of face, nasolabial fold, upper trunk, and also the blemishes. Here we can see that in the sternal region there is erythematous plaque. So this is seborrheic dermatitis. Here we can see there is a greasy staining predominantly in the nasolabial fold, face, and also around the eyelids. So this is a case of seborrheic dermatitis. Here we can see that there is a greasy staining predominantly involving the scalp of this patient, and we can also see similar lesions in the axilla of this child. So this is a case of seborrheic dermatitis in the child. Here we can see there is greasy scaling predominantly involving the earlobes. This is seborrheic dermatitis of ear. Thank you.